Hello everyone. Last time I looked at an old piece of promotional swag I got from ZDTV back in the 90s and talked about the memories it brings up for me. I'm gonna go in a similar vein this time by looking at the free stickers I got with my many orders from one of the earliest internet retailers I ever bought anything from, CDNow. It wasn't actually the first online store I bought something from because in the early 90s, when I was still in high school, my father let me buy a couple of CDs through the CompuServe store of my favorite New Age label, Narada Records, but CDNow was the first internet retailer I bought music from. I kind of retreated to New Age music in the early 90s because I'd went through my rap phase and I still wasn't having luck finding any other music that I really liked listening to. Honestly, I still mostly listen to New Age today just because I do so much reading and writing, and I really prefer instrumental music for that so I don't have two sets of words running through my head at once. But as we got to the mid-90s and MTV started playing more and more good music, I got hooked on a lot of artists of the era, especially the new wave of folk rock singers who were evolving the kind of music my parents listened to when they were teenagers and created one amazing album after another. I had an even easier time finding good music when I got internet access and subscribed to different email lists and forums, and of course I was exposed to more awesome music than I had time for when I went to Antioch College. It was one thing to be aware of all this music, but the 90s also marked a time when it became easier to get your hands on more than just the classics and whatever was on Top 40 radio at the time. Björk became my favorite musician of all time in the early 90s, not just for her music, but for her courage to live the life the way she wanted and not let all the haters get her down, but she's always had more of a following in Europe than in America. Getting Björk's singles and albums that were only released overseas would have been difficult if she'd gone solo just a few years earlier, but even major retailers started carrying import CDs in the 90s just because there was a growing market for them. I especially liked media play stores, which sold not just music, but video games, books, and videos as well. Those stores were one-stop shopping for me back in the day. Still, it took an online retailer to offer as many CDs as possible, and back before Amazon diversified into selling more than just books, CDNow was the destination for music aficionados. Online shopping never really took off until after the internet became a big thing in the mid-90s, even though early online services like CompuServe and America Online and Prodigy had their own stores. None of these stores ever offered anywhere near as many items as Amazon and CDNow did anyway, so the idea that you could shop for literally millions of CDs or millions of books all from the comfort of your home was revolutionary at the time when CDNow and Amazon launched their websites. Shopping at CDNow was almost always a rewarding experience. Sure, import CDs are never cheap, and honestly, I sometimes spent money on CDs that contained literally no new songs to me, just so I could have a complete collection of singles from a particular artist. But I never really had that high school fan experience when I was in high school, and whether it was the amazing collaborators that Björk worked with to remix her songs, or the album quality B-sides that Tori Amos kept churning out year after year, all that music was more than worth my money. The only bad experience I ever had with CDNow came when I ordered a CD by a group called Helium. Some of you may remember Helium best from two of their videos being featured on Beavis and Butthead, which is a shame because they produced some of the best alternative music of the 90s. And their lead singer, Mary Timony, is still coming out with great stuff today. Unfortunately, it turned out that there was also a smaller Australian band at the time that also called itself Helium, and I accidentally ordered one of their CDs from CDNow thinking it was the American group since CDNow lumped them together under the same artist listing. CDNow didn't let me return that CD, which was a pain, but, I'll live. This stuff still happens today because I've been trying for years to get Google to correct their Google Play Music listings of one of my favorite New Age pianists, Michael Jones, with all the other musicians who share that all-too-common name. Like a lot of early internet retailers, CDNow didn't have the capital of an Amazon to survive their formative years and then the bursting of the dot-com bubble at the turn of the millennium. Eventually, CDNow got bought out by Amazon, and these days CDNow is as much of a relic of the 90s as Pogs and Virtual Boys. Retailers adding promotional stuff into their consumer shipments is hardly anything new. Mom used to buy almost all of my father's clothes through catalogs for big and tall shops, and every time she placed an order, we'd get a fresh new catalog, to the point where our wastebaskets were sometimes half full of them. Stickers like the ones I got from CDNow didn't just incentivize customers to buy more from that store, but they also served as free advertising when CDNow customers put the stickers on their cars, which a lot of people did back in the 90s. I'm half tempted to put one of these stickers on my car now, but that would probably be dreadfully hipster of me. Sometimes retailers can go overboard with this stuff, as you can see from this pile of inserts I collected in just a couple of years from Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Seriously, enough of this. But CDNow didn't do that. They did sometimes include promotional stuff from other artists in their packages, like this CD single I've never bothered listening to, and this cassette single by Imagine that I got when I hadn't been buying cassettes for years. The plastic wrapping is still on it because I never bothered opening it, and from what I've read online, it sounds like Imagine didn't exactly tear up the charts. I can only guess that whoever this is, who wound up as a B-side to Imagine's free promotional single, had an even less noteworthy career. Whoever she is. I'm one of the few people I know who still collect CDs, even when my hearing's getting to the point now where I have a hard time telling the difference between an uncompressed CD track and an MP3. I don't buy that many CDs these days anyway, not just because of money issues, but because I'm subscribed to Google Play Music's All Access service, which lets me listen to millions of CDs, including those CD singles I collected so religiously back in the 90s, for less than $10 a month. The convenience of being able to call up all those albums on my phone from wherever I'm sitting and not have to worry about getting up to change CDs should go without saying. But just like vinyl records have been making a comeback lately, it's hard to look back at my days of ordering music through CDNow and not feel more than a pang of nostalgia. Amazon bought CDNow around the time that I started back at college, so I went back to listening to more new age and other instrumental music at that point anyway, just because it helped me when I was studying for my classes. Also, I haven't felt the same emotional connection to Björk and Tori Amos's later work that I did to their first few albums, which could be a generational thing or maybe just a sign of where my mind still is in 2016. I don't know if I'll ever have the same love of modern music that I had back in the 90s, especially with the rut that pop music's been stuck in since about 1998. But I remain hopeful that today's musicians will reinvigorate modern music the same way so many artists did in the 90s, and maybe I can find some other online store to sink my spending money into, just like I did back in the day with CDNow. Join me for the next musecast, when I'll take a look at another interesting artifact of my life. Until then, take care, and be well.